The trades you make when you're emotional aren't the problem. The problem is you don't know you're emotional when you're making them. Your brain convinced you that you were being logical, that you had good reasons, that this time was different. Emotional trading doesn't feel emotional. It feels rational in the moment. That's why it's so destructive. You think you're analyzing when you're actually justifying. You think you're being strategic when you're actually being defensive. Elite traders dominate because they've developed the ability to recognize emotional states while they're in them. They can feel fear and simultaneously know this is fear talking, not analysis. And that recognition, that awareness in real time, is what gives them the space to choose differently. And I know exactly where you are right now. You've made trades that seemed perfectly reasonable at the time. You had your reasons. You could explain them. But later, when the dust settled, when the emotion passed, you looked back and thought, what was I thinking? That wasn't my system. That wasn't my plan. What happened to me? And you blame yourself for being emotional, for lacking discipline, for being weak. But here's what nobody's telling you. In the moment, it didn't feel emotional. It felt like you were responding to what you were seeing. It felt like you were making a smart adjustment based on new information. Your brain gave you perfectly logical-sounding reasons for why you needed to exit that position early, why you needed to enter that trade even though it wasn't your setup, why you needed to move that stop-loss just a little further to give it more room. This video isn't about teaching you to suppress emotions. It's not about becoming a robot. It's about showing you why trying to become emotionless is actually sabotaging your trading and what you need to do instead. Because the core pain you're experiencing, the thing that's keeping you stuck, is that you've been told emotions are the enemy, that you need to trade like a machine, that the goal is to feel nothing. And the harder you try to eliminate emotion, the more it controls you from the shadows. You suppress fear and it doesn't disappear. It leaks out as hesitation, as overanalyzing, as missing your entries because you needed just one more confirmation. You suppress greed and it doesn't go away. It erupts as revenge trading after a loss, as position sizing too big because you need to make back what you lost. The suppression itself is destroying your consistency, because what you resist persists, and what you don't acknowledge, you can't manage. Here's the unique insight that changes everything. Elite traders don't dominate because they're emotionless. They dominate because they're emotionally aware. They feel everything you feel. Fear when positions go against them. Greed when they see opportunity. Doubt when they're in a drawdown. Excitement when they're on a winning streak. They feel it all, but they've developed something you haven't. They've developed the space between stimulus and response where conscious choice lives. And here's the myth I need to bust right now because it's keeping you trapped. Emotions aren't the problem. Unconscious reaction to emotions is the problem. And you can't become conscious by eliminating emotion. That's impossible. You're a human being. Humans feel. You become conscious by observing emotion without identifying with it, by feeling fear without becoming fear, by experiencing greed without being greed. So what you're going to take away from this video is the exact framework elite traders use to feel emotions without being controlled by them. Why awareness creates that critical space, and practical methods you can use immediately to observe your emotional states in real time so you can choose responses instead of executing reactions. Let me give you an image that makes this completely clear. Think of two devices that both measure temperature. First device is a thermometer. Simple, straightforward. Temperature goes up, the mercury rises. Temperature drops, the mercury falls. The thermometer has absolutely no control over temperature. It just reflects what is. It's pure reactivity. When the environment is hot, it shows hot. When the environment is cold, it shows cold. It has no capacity to regulate, no capacity to influence. It just mirrors conditions. Now think about a thermostat. A thermostat also measures temperature. It's also aware of what the temperature is. But here's the critical difference. When a thermostat detects temperature outside the desired range, it triggers a response. Too cold? Heating system turns on. Too hot? Cooling activates. It doesn't just react to conditions, it regulates conditions. It works with both heat and cold to maintain optimal environment. Most traders are thermometers. The market triggers fear, they react with fear. No space, no awareness, just immediate reflection of the environmental condition. Market triggers greed, they react with greed. Market triggers anger after a loss. They react with revenge trading. They are pure reflection of whatever the market makes them feel with no regulatory capacity whatsoever. Elite traders are thermostats. They detect the emotional temperature. They feel it fully. I'm feeling fear right now. I'm experiencing greed. I notice anger is present. And that detection itself, that awareness, triggers regulation. It creates space. The awareness that I'm feeling fear allows them to ask, is this fear giving me accurate information, or is this just discomfort with normal uncertainty? Is this fear telling me my risk is too high, or is it just the discomfort of not knowing how this trade will turn out? And here's what's beautiful about the thermostat. It doesn't eliminate heat or cold. It doesn't fight against temperature changes. It works with both. It uses both as information to maintain optimal conditions. Elite traders don't eliminate fear or greed. They don't fight against their emotions. They use both as information to maintain optimal decision-making. One device, the thermometer, is completely dominated by conditions. The other device, the thermostat, works with conditions to produce desired outcomes. One is reactive, one is responsive, and that difference is everything in trading. But how do you become a thermostat when you've been a thermometer your whole life? How do you develop that regulatory capacity when right now you just reflect whatever the market makes you feel? That's what we need to explore. Let me tell you about something from physics that changed how I understand emotions in trading. In quantum physics, there's something called the observer effect. The act of observing a phenomenon changes the phenomenon itself. Before observation, particles exist in what's called superposition. Multiple states at once, multiple possibilities. The moment you observe them, the moment you measure them, the wave function collapses into a single state. The observation itself changes what's being observed. Your emotions work exactly the same way. When you're unconscious of them, when you don't observe them, when you're not aware they're happening, they exist in a reactive state that controls your behavior automatically. You're not aware you're afraid. You just exit the position. You're not aware you're greedy. You just chase the breakout that's not your setup. The emotion operates below conscious awareness and it drives behavior directly. But the moment you observe it consciously, the moment you become aware and notice I am feeling fear right now, something fundamental changes. The emotion doesn't disappear, you still feel it. But it loses its absolute control. It stops being the only voice that matters. It becomes one input among many instead of the dictator of your decisions. I've watched traders, myself included, go from being completely consumed by fear to making rational decisions in fearful situations simply by developing the habit of naming what they feel in real time. Not fighting it. Not trying to suppress it. Not judging themselves for feeling it, just observing it, just naming it. I notice fear is present. I'm aware of anxiety. I observe doubt arising. That simple act of observation, of naming, creates distance. It creates the space between you and the emotion, and distance creates choice. The emotion that was controlling you, that was making decisions through you, becomes information you're considering. You shift from I am afraid, which is complete identification, to I notice fear, which is observation. And that shift from being the emotion to observing the emotion is the shift from thermometer to thermostat. So what exactly happens in that space between feeling and action that elite traders have mastered? What's actually going on in that gap? Let me break this down because this is where transformation actually happens. There are two fundamentally different ways to relate to emotion. The first way is identification. I am angry. I am fearful. I am greedy. The emotion becomes your identity. You are the emotion. There's no separation. You're fused with it. When you are the emotion, you have no choice but to act from it. You are fear, so you flee. You must exit. You are greed, so you chase. You must enter. You are anger, so you attack. You must revenge trade. There's no space between the feeling and the action. They're one continuous automatic process. The second way to relate to emotion is observation. I notice anger is present. I'm aware of fear. I'm experiencing greed right now. The emotion becomes something you're aware of, not something you are. You become the awareness that notices emotion, and awareness can choose. Fear is present in my experience, but I'm not fear. I'm the one observing fear. So I can acknowledge the fear is there. I can feel it fully in my chest and my stomach, and I can still execute my trade if my system says, this is the entry. This seems like a small linguistic difference. It seems like just words, but it creates massive psychological space. When you say, I am afraid, you're identified. You're fused. There's no observer. There's just fear experiencing itself. But when you say, I notice fear is present, you've created a distinction. There's fear, and there's the you that notices fear. And that noticing you, that observing awareness, has choice. The practice that makes this real, that moves this from concept to actual experience, is changing your sentence structure every time you feel strong emotion while trading. Not I am afraid, but I notice fear is present. Not I am greedy, but I observe greed arising. Not I am angry, but I'm aware of anger in my system. That grammatical shift creates psychological shift, from identification to observation, from being controlled to being aware. And it's trainable. You can practice this 50 times today and you'll feel the difference. You'll feel the space opening up between what you feel and what you do. Now here's the paradox that destroys most traders, the thing nobody tells you that keeps you stuck. Trying not to feel emotion makes emotion stronger. It's called ironic process theory. Some people call it the pink elephant effect. I tell you right now, don't think about a pink elephant. Don't picture it. Don't imagine it. What do you immediately think about? Pink elephant. The command to not think about it makes you think about it. Tell yourself, don't feel fear when your position is moving against you. Don't be afraid. Stop being afraid. Where does all your attention go? To the fear you're trying not to feel. The suppression itself amplifies what you're suppressing. You create this internal war. Part of you feels fear, which is natural, which is your nervous system doing its job. Another part of you says you shouldn't feel fear. You need to be disciplined. You need to be strong. A third part feels shame about feeling fear. And now you're not just dealing with fear. You're dealing with fear plus resistance plus shame. You've tripled the emotional load by trying to suppress the first emotion. Elite traders don't try to not feel. They allow themselves to feel fully while creating space around the feeling. They don't fight fear. They make room for it. They say, yes, fear is here. I can feel it. My chest is tight. My stomach is churning. This is what fear feels like in my body. And I'm going to execute my plan anyway. The fear doesn't go away. But it doesn't control the decision. They're not fighting it. They're not suppressing it. They're including it in their awareness while choosing their action consciously. This is deeply counterintuitive, but absolutely critical to understand. Emotional dominance comes from acceptance, not suppression. When you stop fighting your emotions, when you stop trying to be emotionless, when you stop resisting what you feel, the emotions lose their power over you. Because you're not giving them energy anymore. You're not feeding them with resistance. All the energy you were using to push emotions away, to suppress them, to fight them, gets freed up, and it becomes available for observation and conscious choice. What you resist persists. What you fight grows stronger, but what you observe and accept loses its compulsive power. It's still there. You still feel it. But it's not running the show anymore. Let me tell you something Viktor Frankl said that changed my entire understanding of this. He said, between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Between stimulus and response there is a space. Most traders have no space. Zero. Market moves against them. Immediate reaction. Position goes in their favor. Immediate reaction. Something unexpected happens. Immediate reaction. There is no gap between what happens and what they do. Stimulus and response are fused together. They're one continuous automatic process. Something happens out there, something happens in here, action follows. No space, no choice. Pure reactivity. Elite traders have cultivated space. They've developed it. They've practiced it. Market moves against them. First, there's awareness. I'm feeling fear. Then, there's inquiry. Does this price movement invalidate my thesis, or is this normal variance within the expected range? Then there's choice. I'll hold my position because my stop hasn't been hit, and this movement is within normal parameters. Then there's response based on conscious decision. There's a pause, a gap, a space where conscious decision lives. And that space isn't natural. You're not born with it. It's developed through practice, through one specific thing, observing your internal state in real time, feeling emotion, and simultaneously noticing you're feeling it. That dual awareness, experiencing and observing at the same time, is what creates the gap. Here's the mechanism that makes this work. The observing part of you is calmer than the experiencing part. When you're just experiencing fear with no observer, you are the fear. You're caught in it. You're identified with it. It feels all-consuming. But when you activate the observer, when you create that awareness of, I'm noticing fear, you're not eliminating the experiencer. The part of you that feels is still feeling. But you're not dominated by it anymore because you're operating from a higher vantage point. You're operating from awareness that includes the feeling but isn't limited to the feeling. It's like being in a storm versus watching a storm from a safe place. When you're in the storm, it's all you know. It's your entire reality. But when you can observe the storm from somewhere else, you still see the storm. You're still aware it's happening, but you're not caught in it the same way. Now let me talk about something that changes how you relate to every emotion you feel. Your emotions are giving you information. They're not commands, they're data. Fear says there's risk here. Pay attention. Greed says there's opportunity here. Don't miss it. Anger says something violated your expectations. Something went against what you thought should happen. These aren't commands you must obey. They're information you can evaluate. The untrained trader treats emotions as commands. Feels fear, must exit. No evaluation, no consideration. Just immediate obedience. Feels greed, must enter. Feels anger after a loss, must revenge trade to make it back. Automatic obedience to whatever emotion shows up. The elite trader treats emotions as information. Feels fear, okay, what specifically am I afraid of? Is the risk I'm feeling actually larger than I thought when I entered this trade? Or am I just uncomfortable with normal uncertainty? Is my position size actually too big for my risk tolerance? Or am I just experiencing the normal discomfort that comes with not knowing how this will turn out? Feels greed. Am I seeing genuine opportunity based on my edge? Or am I chasing momentum out of FOMO because everyone else seems to be making money? The emotion becomes a starting point for inquiry, not an ending point that dictates action. The framework shift is from I feel X, therefore I must do Y, to I feel X. What is this feeling telling me? And is the message accurate in this context? One framework makes you a slave to emotion. Whatever you feel, you must do. The other framework makes you a student of your own psychology. You're learning what your emotions mean. You're getting curious about them instead of being controlled by them. And here's the ultimate paradox, the thing that sounds completely backward until you experience it. You gain control over emotions by stopping trying to control them. You dominate by surrendering the need to dominate. When you fight emotions, when you try to control them, when you demand they go away, you energize them. You create internal warfare. Part of you feels fear. Another part demands you don't feel fear. A third part feels shame about feeling fear when you're supposed to be disciplined. It's exhausting and it doesn't work. You're at war with yourself, but when you accept emotions, when you say yes, fear is here. That's okay. I'm human. Humans feel fear in uncertain situations. This is normal. The fight stops. The emotion is still there. You still feel it. But it's not amplified by your resistance anymore. It's not being fed by your fight against it. And in that acceptance, you discover something profound. You're not the emotion. You're the space in which the emotion appears. You're the awareness that can hold fear without being fear. That can feel greed without becoming greed. That can experience anger without being consumed by anger. And from that space, from that awareness, you can feel fear and trade anyway. You can feel greed and stay disciplined anyway. You can feel doubt and trust your system anyway. Not because you eliminated the feeling, but because you're not identified with it. The truth is this: emotional mastery is emotional acceptance plus conscious choice, not emotional elimination. You accept what you feel. You don't fight it. You don't resist it. You don't judge yourself for it. And from that acceptance, you choose your action consciously based on your system, based on your edge, based on your plan, rather than reacting automatically based on whatever emotion is loudest. Now let me make this completely practical. Let me give you the exact practices that will develop this capacity in you. First practice: real-time labeling. Throughout your trading day, practice labeling emotions as they arise. I notice anxiety is present. I'm aware of excitement. I observe frustration arising. I feel impatience in my body. You're not judging the emotion. You're not trying to change it. You're not fighting it. You're just naming it. You're just bringing it into conscious awareness. This simple act, this naming, creates the observer position. Because there's the emotion and there's the you that's naming the emotion. And that distinction is the space. Do this 50 times in a trading session. Label 50 emotions, and you'll feel the space opening between feeling and action. You'll notice that your decisions start to come from a calmer place, even when emotions are intense. Second practice: the body scan interrupt. When you're about to make a trading decision, especially one that feels urgent, pause for 3 seconds, just 3 seconds, and scan your body. Where do you feel tension? Is your chest tight? Is your stomach churning? Are your shoulders raised? Are your hands clenched? This isn't analysis. This is awareness. Your body carries emotional states before your mind recognizes them. Before you can name the emotion, your body is already responding to it. By scanning your body, you're checking in. You're asking, am I making this decision from clarity or from an emotional state I haven't acknowledged yet. If you feel tightness, if you feel anxiety in your body, if you feel urgency, that's information. That's your nervous system telling you something. Maybe you pause the decision until the intensity passes. Maybe you take a breath. Maybe you step away for 60 seconds. You're not suppressing the emotion. You're just not making important decisions while you're in an activated state. Third practice, the emotion thought action log. After trades, especially the emotional ones, especially the ones that didn't follow your plan, journal 3 columns. Column 1, what emotion did I feel? Column 2, what thoughts came from that emotion? Column 3, what action did I take? This creates pattern awareness. You'll start to see your own patterns clearly. When I feel fear, I think the market is against me, and I exit positions early before my stop is hit. When I feel greed, I think I'm missing out, and I enter trades that aren't my setup. When I feel anger after a loss, I think I need to make it back immediately, and I increase my position size and take revenge trades. Seeing the pattern written down breaks its automatic nature. It makes it conscious. Next time fear arises, you'll recognize it. You'll think, oh, this is that pattern. I know what happens next. I start thinking the market is against me and I want to exit. But I don't have to follow that pattern. I can choose differently. The awareness of the pattern gives you choice. Without awareness, you're just repeating the same cycle over and over without knowing why. Fourth practice, the sacred pause. Install a rule in your trading. Any decision made in emotional intensity requires a 60-second pause. You feel the urgent need to exit in panic. 60-second pause. You feel the compelling urge to revenge trade after a loss. 60-second pause. You feel you absolutely must enter this trade right now or you'll miss it. 60-second pause. You're not suppressing the emotion. You're not fighting it. You're creating space around it. Set a timer, 60 seconds. And breathe. Feel the emotion fully. Notice where it is in your body. Name it. I'm feeling intense fear. I'm feeling powerful greed. I'm feeling deep anger. Feel it completely. And often the compulsive quality fades in that minute. The absolute certainty that you must act right now diminishes. If after 60 seconds you still want to make the trade, you still want to exit, at least it's more conscious than it was. At least you've given yourself the space to choose rather than just reacting. These practices sound simple, and they are simple in concept, but they require something most traders don't realize. They require you to be willing to feel, to actually experience your emotions fully instead of constantly trying to escape them or suppress them or numb them. Most traders spend all their energy trying not to feel, and that trying not to feel is what's destroying them. These practices ask you to do the opposite, to feel fully, to welcome the emotion, to observe it with curiosity, and in that feeling, in that observation, to discover that you're not the emotion, that you're bigger than the emotion, that you can hold the emotion in your awareness without being consumed by it. We started this video with a challenging idea, that the trades you make when you're emotional aren't the problem. The problem is you don't know you're emotional when you're making them. And now you understand what I meant. Emotional trading doesn't feel emotional in the moment. It feels rational. It feels justified. Your brain gives you perfectly logical reasons for what you're doing, and those reasons are coming from emotion that you're not consciously aware of. You learned that elite traders don't dominate because they're emotionless. They dominate because they're emotionally aware. They feel everything you feel. Fear when positions move against them. Greed when they see opportunity. Doubt during drawdowns. Excitement during winning streaks. But they've developed the critical skill that you haven't yet developed. The ability to observe emotion without being controlled by it. You saw the difference between being a thermometer that just reacts to conditions and being a thermostat that observes conditions and regulates responses. One is pure reactivity with no choice. The other is responsive awareness with conscious decision-making. You discovered that trying to suppress emotion actually amplifies it, that what you resist persists. But what you accept and observe loses its controlling power. You learned that emotions aren't commands, they're information. Fear isn't an order to exit. It's data that risk is present, which you can evaluate consciously. Is this risk real and beyond what I intended, or is this just discomfort with uncertainty? Greed isn't a mandate to enter. It's information that opportunity might be present, which you can assess rationally. Am I seeing genuine edge, or am I just chasing what's already moved? Most importantly, you discovered that the space between stimulus and response, where all conscious choice lives, where all freedom exists, is created through one practice: observing your internal state in real time while experiencing it, feeling the emotion, and simultaneously noticing you're feeling it. That dual awareness is what creates the gap between feeling and action. Now hear this clearly. You're not broken because you feel emotions while trading. You're not weak. You're not lacking discipline. You're human. Emotions are part of human experience. They're features, not bugs. The elite traders you admire, the ones who seem so calm and disciplined, they feel emotions too. The difference isn't that they're emotionless robots. The difference is that they're aware observers of their emotional experience. And observation creates the space where choice lives. You don't need to eliminate what you feel. That's impossible. And it would make you a worse trader, not a better one. Emotions carry information. Fear tells you when risk is too high. Greed tells you when you're chasing. You need those signals. What you need is to stop being controlled by what you feel. And that happens through awareness, not suppression, through observation, not elimination, through acceptance, not resistance. The reason emotionless traders don't actually dominate the market is because emotionless traders don't exist. They're a myth. What exists are traders who've developed extraordinary emotional awareness, who can feel fear and simultaneously know this is fear, this isn't reality, who can feel greed and recognize this is excitement, this isn't edge, who can feel anger and understand this is my ego being hurt, this isn't information about what to do next. That awareness isn't something you're born with. Nobody comes into the world with this capacity fully developed. It's something you build through practice, through labeling emotions in real time 50 times a day until it becomes automatic, through body scan interrupts before decisions, so you're checking your state before acting, through journaling the pattern of emotion, thought, action, until you see your own mechanisms so clearly that they lose their automatic power. You dominate the market not by becoming less human, but by becoming more conscious. Not by eliminating emotion, but by observing it without identification. By developing the observer position that can watch your own psychological processes, that can see your own patterns without being swept away by them. By creating the sacred pause, that 60-second gap between what you feel and what you do, where you're free to choose based on your system rather than reacting based on emotion. And that capacity, that space between stimulus and response, that's where all trading edge actually lives. Not in better analysis. You probably already know how to analyze charts, not in more indicators. You probably already have the tools you need. The edge lives in the gap between what happens in the market and what you do about it. In the space where you can feel fear and still execute your entry. Where you can feel greed and still follow your exit plan. Where you can feel doubt and still trust the process you've tested. So if this reframed emotional trading for you, if you finally see that awareness is the answer rather than suppression, If you understand now that the goal isn't to become emotionless, but to become emotionally intelligent, I want you to share in the comments which emotion controls your trading most. Is it fear? Is it greed? Is it anger? Is it something else? Name it. Write it down. Because naming it is the first step to observing it, and observing it is the first step to not being controlled by it. Like this video if it showed you that elite traders aren't emotionless, they're emotionally aware. If it revealed that what you thought was your weakness, your tendency to feel, is actually just human, and the real work is developing the observer who can feel without being controlled. Subscribe to this channel if you want more. Truth about the psychology that actually creates consistent performance versus the myths that keep you stuck. And remember this as you go forward. You don't need to become emotionless. You never did. You need to become aware, feel everything, experience it fully, welcome it, observe it, and be controlled by nothing. That's how you dominate, not by eliminating your humanity, but by bringing consciousness to it. See you in the next one. Observe, don't suppress.